Hi there. I'm going to talk today about frame rates in video games and the uses of it. Um, First of all, we need to discuss what frame rate is, and frame rate is usually abbreviated by FPS, or frames per second. It is like putting one image next to another image next to another image over this long period of time to create like a movie or an animation, which guys like Tex Avery and those folks use to create cartoons and stuff, which I guess if you wanted to say the video games are like little animations, and and the development on those is what gives us our frame rates. What we're going to talk about is the differences in frames per second. Your conventional uses of the frames per second stuff is something like 30 is what Europe usually uses as far as when they program stuff, which reminds me of having a DVD or something I couldn't watch because it was in the wrong frames per second thing, I guess is why I couldn't watch it. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody can comment on it and let me know. But my friend had said that it was in some kind of European format, and that must have been what he meant by that, and that it wouldn't read on a DVD. But yeah, Europe, they use the 30 frames per second kind of stuff. Cinema is usually in 24 frames per second. Different like sports games or sports, like when you watch a soccer match or something, the more frames per second that you have, the better the quality is going to be as far as your eye seeing the movement. They say that, or Edison said that the use of frames per second and the eye standard, which your eye can catch as far as it not looking right, would be about 30 frames per second. So the different frames per second that they use that I could utilize in a game, like for instance, like the 2 frames per second, I could use something like that where it was on like a title screen that changed to a different night and dark, or cycled through different title screen sequences or whatever, like one that was green and one that was blue, that it would change, for the frames per second, to have it implemented that way. For more refined, like cinematic kind of animation stuff, that we could speed it up to 60 frames per second and run a game at 30, but utilizing for different times, like the frames per second that we could use to move the story along for like parts that you have to read. Not that there's a lot of games out there like that, but things that we could use these frames per second and manipulate that to have you look at something longer would be a use for me to have frames rates change, and to utilize that dynamic for to save money, and it's easier to do. Let's see, a question is then, frame rates, a faster frame rate is better for speeding up or slowing down a sequence? What would it show you, I guess? What would it a slower frame rate would appear, or less frames per second would appear to be, when you watch it on screen, would it appear to be faster or slower?